Just to take it right back, earliest musical memories of a lad growing up in Scotland. What are the first memories you have of music starting to be an important part of your life?
I think it was when my parents decided to go on holiday to Spain, and at that time it encompassed all the family, cousins, aunties, uncles. We all travelled a place called Fonterrabia, still remember the name, and I was 11 years old then. I was supposed to start school on the day that we left to go on holiday, but that was back in the 60s, so it didn't matter. And I distinctly remember they were running the bulls through the town, which they do a lot in Spain, and I took shelter in a doorway, and when the bulls passed, I saw this young guy, maybe my age, 11 years old, sitting on a windowsill, and he was playing a Spanish guitar, and I just sat in front of him for 20 minutes or so, and I was enthralled, and I made my mind up then that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play a Spanish guitar, and I convinced my parents to buy me one there and then, and I took it back to Edinburgh on the plane in a cardboard box, and it survived the journey, and that's when I started to play.
What about the bass? When did that come into play for you?
Well, as you may know, and you'll maybe cover this later, I was a member of the Bay City Rollers for a while, and I was the lead guitarist with the Bay City Rollers. And it was fun, but I wanted to leave and do something else a bit more progressive. And I was asked to join a band, but I'd have to share playing the bass and playing guitar, which was fine by me because I'm a McCartney fanatic. You know, I just love the bass. So I ended up just playing more and more bass and enjoying it more and more.
Not many would know that you were an early member of the Bay City Rollers. How did all that come to be?
I was in a band called the Beachcombers, and we travelled to London. We did an audition at a well-known club called the Marquee Club, and we did the audition for CBS Records, and we passed the audition with flying colours, and we were given a deal with CBS Records. We had 2 releases, and we stayed in London for about a year. Then things started to go pear-shaped, and the singer left to go back to Edinburgh to his girlfriend, and and that's the things you do when you're 16, 17 years old. You know? So we all returned to Edinburgh and disbanded, and Tam Paton got to hear that I had left the Beachcomber, or that we had split up. So he got in touch with me and asked me if I would join the Bay City Rollers. I said, no, that's not really... I knew about the Bay City Rollers. Everybody knew about the Bay City Rollers in Scotland at that time. They weren't famous worldwide, but they were famous in Scotland as being a kind of teeny band. So Tam gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. He said, we'll give you a weekly wage, we'll buy you a Les Paul guitar, your amplifier, you'll be entertained on your nights off. We'll go to the cinema or bowling or whatnot. And he just painted a great picture, and I thought, well, I can do that at least until I get another gig with another band.
Yeah.
And I did it. I think I ended up staying for about a year, and it was a lot of fun at that time. Not the same lineup as the successful Bay City Rollers, but it was still a lot of fun, and in a way a good apprenticeship for me for what was about to come with Pilot. So I really enjoyed it.
Could you imagine yourself being part of that hysteria that would later follow them around in later years?
No. Well, as I say, they were well known in Scotland, and that hysteria was still there. It was there way back then before they became well known. So I got a good taste of it then, and I didn't really enjoy it because, the music was always the most important thing to me, and with the Rollers it was kind of secondary. It was just the hysteria, no matter what they played or what they sounded like. So I think I took my music a bit more seriously, and I wanted to progress and start writing songs and all that stuff.
Sure. You've never pondered how your life may have panned out had you stayed with them?
I have. I think it would have been a nightmare. I think, in view of the things that I've done since then, it's still the bane of my life that people will mention it. And, for me to work with worldwide artists, it doesn't hold me back, but it's still, something I think, I wish I hadn't joined them. And then, people wouldn't be able to bring it up.
Yeah,
There you go. It's
true.
there.
Talk about the formation of Pilot. Did you have a blueprint in mind of the type of band you wanted it to be?
No, we were influenced by people like the Beatles and Elton John, and when we started writing together, not together, we wrote songs, but we didn't write together. Billy Lyle and myself. That's what came out of our heads. It just came out as a kind of commercial, slightly Beatlish sound, but that's what we wanted. We wanted it to be like that, and we had an identity, and we enjoyed the fact that people recognised a Pilot song.
Mm.
So, it's not something we consciously done. It was just there. It's just the way it came out.
Most people would know the band for its two major hit singles, but you did release some wonderful albums. Do you feel do you feel a little bit frustrated at times that those albums aren't recognised as much for what they were?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of self-indulgent, selfish, but I kind of think, I still like the songs. And we had a rehearsal just a couple of weeks ago because we're off to Japan, and just playing the songs again after it's been a year or so since we did our last gig. Just playing the songs again, they come alive when you play them live, and I just thought, that was really good. Every song we played, I thought, wow, that's great. Did I write that? Yeah, that's good. It's no. I think Pilot music is still there, and younger people, 14-year-olds, younger than that, they'll hear Magic, and then I'll get a message from them saying, "Oh, I first heard Pilot when I heard Magic in such and such a film or whatever, and I've now got your albums and I think you're a great band." That's satisfying enough for me, really.
Yeah. Do you recall writing that song?
Magic?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yes. I used to I had a piano. I wrote most of my songs on a piano, and it was in a little box room, and on top of the piano was a little tape recorder, and I would just sit in there daily and write whatever I could, and even if it was just 2 bars or 4 bars, I would put the tape recorder in the record and record it. So I just recorded this one little bit. Oh, it's magic. Never believe it's not so. And it was just that. That's all there was. And I thought, I'll be able to use that eventually. And I was just waiting for something else to come along. I was getting up early one morning to deliver milk for a friend who had a dairy. And I said, all right, I'll deliver your milk. I was gigging at night, getting in at 1 o'clock in the morning and then getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and do this favour. And my wife said to me, as I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, she said, "I've never been awake to see the daybreak." and it sounded like a melody to me. I heard it in my head and I thought, wow, that's great. So I quickly scribbled it down. And then when I finished my work, I came home and put this song, "I've Never Been Awake," with "Oh Ho Ho, It's Magic," and it worked perfect.
Yeah, magic moment.
Exactly.
Now, January was a massive hit here in Australia, probably as big here as it was anywhere in the world, and a huge hit in England as well, but didn't do as well in America. Do you have a theory on why that was?
I don't really, because Magic did better in America than it did in the UK. It was number 11 in the UK, and it was I think it was number 3 in the States. And we followed it up with January, hoping for the same success, but it didn't happen. But it must have made an impression on them, because later, in 1977, we signed to Arista with Clive Davis. And he said to me, "I want your first song to sound like January and Magic." And I thought, Easy. No, it wasn't. I wrote Get Up and Go, and I thought, that's the song. And he even sent me a telegram and said, this is the one. But it didn't happen. And I can't explain these things at all. Especially somebody like Clive Davis having so much faith in a song like that. And it just didn't happen. And he put the might of Arista behind it.
Has it been a source of frustration over the years since then that people, particularly the media focus on you has been as David Paton, frontman of Pilot, rather, and not give due recognition to the great body of work you've done since those years?
I'm very proud of my achievements with Pilot. It's every songwriter's dream to write a number one song.
Sure.
And I achieved that. And to me, it just can't be surpassed as a songwriter. But, it's a little frustrating that I was only in Pilot for 3 years or so, and for the other 30, 40 years, I've been behind the scenes. But that's the case with most behind the scenes people. You don't get the recognition unless you do an interview like this one, and then you can say, I worked with whoever. And it's a little... No, it's not frustrating. It's just the way it is, and I'm quite happy that Pilot has achieved what it achieved and has a lot of respect.
That's right, yeah. What was the main catalyst for the band breaking up when it did back then?
It was management. It was really bad management who were fleecing us left, right and centre. I even wrote a song called Penny in My Pocket. I didn't have a penny to even get from my hotel to the studio, and I had to walk. They were just fleecing us so badly that the only way out was to stop working as Pilot. And when the opportunity came along to work with Kate Bush, I think that was one of the first sessions, I jumped at that, and it just snowballed from there with Alan Parsons, Chris Rea, Chris de Burgh, even Paul McCartney. It just snowballed, so there was no looking back after that. We did manage to resolve the issues with the management, but it was too late by then. We did get back together in 1977 to do, as I say, the Arista album, Choose a Crowd.
When the band did end, did you pretty much straight away have a clear vision what you wanted to do with the next phase of your career?
No. No, I didn't at all. I recorded a solo album, and when I listen to it now, I realise where my head was when I wrote it. I wrote a song called Too Many Ways, and I don't know which way to turn. And that's how I felt. I just felt, what do I want to do now? What will I do? My life will always be in music, but where did I want to go? But I eventually decided I was very comfortable in the background, being a bass player for somebody else who had all the focus. And that's what I've been doing really most of the time, although I still love writing, so I'm still putting out my own albums.
Tell us about touring with Elton John. How enjoyable was it to be able to tour at that level and just be, as you say, the bass player in a band rather than the responsibility of being the front guy?
It was a bit like being in Disneyland, and getting on different rides and just thinking, wow, beat that. And it came about because I did a session for him. I was asked to go along and play on three or four songs on his album Ice on Fire. There's quite a few musicians involved in that, and I didn't know at the time that he was looking for putting together a band without Dee Murray. So I played on Nikita, which he was really knocked out with, and he kept telling me that the bass part had made the song. And he asked me to tour with him, which I was surprised with and delighted with, because the first gig was Live Aid.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was just watching a vision of that the other day of you at Live Aid. You must have some wonderful memories of that.
Yeah. I mean, George Michael was sharing the dressing room. And it was he came up to me and said, I want to tell you that January had a huge influence on me. And he said, it's one of the best songs I heard. He said, I played it 100 times when I first heard it. And to hear that from somebody of that stature is just, it's great, you know. It just makes me think I've achieved something. But Elton, it was Fantasyland, you know. They would introduce you to people that you would never expect, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Princess Diana. You never knew who you were going to meet next. And he would just come into the dressing room and say, "Come on, guys, I want you to meet somebody." You never knew who it would be, but it would always be somebody that would make you go, "Wow." Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
You've done an enormous amount of session work over the years, and with people from a wide range of musical styles. How important has it been to you to maintain that diversity, to be open to anything musically?
It's a great pleasure to do that, and not to be stuck in the one band doing the one style of music. And it helped me and my versatility to be able to do all that kind of stuff. You know, one minute I'm playing with Rick Wakeman, and then I'm playing with Camel, or I'm playing with Elton John. You know, it's fantastic to be able to turn your hand to that different style of music and know that the artists involved are enjoying what I'm doing. And that's a great thrill for me. You know, as I said, the greatest thrill as a songwriter was to write a number one song, but the greatest thrill as a musician is to work with somebody like Elton John and for him to congratulate you on your playing.
Any standout sessions that hold pride of place for you?
Well, the Nikita session was pretty special because of the way it came about. It was just, I was leaning over the drum booth talking to the drummer, and I was aware of somebody at my side, and I turned, and Elton was standing right beside me, smiling at me. Introduced himself, which he didn't have to do, and I continued talking to the drummer, and Elton went over to the piano and just sat down at the piano, and I picked up my fretless bass. I just wanted to tune it up. I thought, oh, Elton wants to do something. The drummer left the studio, and I was there with just Elton, and he just went through a load of chords, you know, and I just thought, maybe he's making this up. And I just started to play along with him. And after about 20 minutes of going round this chord sequence, he stopped and he said, "I think you've got that." He says, "That's the first song we're going to record with you. It's called Nikita." And he walked out and he says, "Right, Gus, are you ready to do this?" And Gus Dudgeon said, "Yeah, let's do it." And that was it. We did it. One take, I think.
Amazing.
That's the way he likes to work, and it's great working that way with somebody that's so on it. You know, it's great.
You mentioned Rick Wakeman earlier, and you worked extensively with him in the 90s. Tell us how that came to be and how you found Rick to work with.
I was recording at a studio quite near where I lived in Berkshire, a place called Wraysbury, and the guy that owned the studio was a friend of Rick, and he said, "Oh, Rick's coming in to do an album." I said, "Oh, I'd like to meet him." I said, "I was a big fan of Yes. I loved the Yes album and Fragile, all the albums that Rick played on." He says, "Well, just hang about, you'll be here soon." And I met Rick and got on really well with him. And he said, "Why don't you play some bass on this album that I'm doing?" And I said, "Fine, yeah, I will." And that was it. I went in maybe a week later or so and played bass on some of his tracks, which were, for me, pretty complicated. And he didn't give me any chord sheets or anything. He just played the track and said, "There you go, play your bass." And it worked out great. So he asked me to join his band, and we did tour quite extensively. We went to South Africa, we went to Israel, all the controversial places. And one night we were playing in the UK. We were playing in somewhere like Portsmouth or Brighton. I remember walking along a promenade, and he said to me, "I want to go out, just you and I, doing my music in a classical style." I don't know if you're aware of the Classical Connection albums that he did.
Yes, so I am.
We did, yeah, and there was a video as well of some of the stuff that we did together, and that's where I got to play my Spanish guitar, which was, as I say, the first instrument that I learned to play. So that was great. That was great fun, and we just went our different ways when, you know, I said, "I'm getting more work Rick, I said, but I'll do as much as you can. He says, no, it's all right, whatever you want to do, you just do it. I'll work around you. But we didn't manage to get together again. I haven't seen him for about 20 years.
Oh, right. Now, your association with Alan Parsons goes back to the pilot days when he produced the band. Tell us about the kind of producer he is, and was he the perfect fit for the band? And how he approached the role?
Yeah, well, we when we signed with EMI, they gave us a list of engineers who were working in Abbey Road who wanted to take the next step up the ladder, which was from engineer to producer. There was a list of 10 engineers on there, and one of them was Alan Parsons. I knew he had been involved in Dark Side of the Moon, and I knew he had been involved with a couple of McCartney things. So immediately I pointed to that name and said, that's the guy we want. And we spoke to Alan, we met him, we invited him up to Edinburgh to the studio that we were working in. I think we only had an 8-track studio at that time, but we asked him to do a quick rough mix for us of one of the tunes we were working on. He was a bit reluctant, but he did it, and he did a great job of it, and we thought, yeah, we've got the right guy here. He's a very quiet man to work with. You could sit through a whole session. He wouldn't say much, he would just keep playing the song over and over, and just modifying it as he went, improving it as he went. And sometimes he'd turn round to you and just say, what do you think? And you don't say, nah, the snare drum's too loud, you just, you're listening to it and you're thinking, well, that's just perfection, why does he keep it going? It sounds perfect to me. Yeah, he was great to work with, a great pleasure to be involved with, then from pilot onto the project as well. And that was 10 years for me.
Talk about your songwriting. Has your method and procedure of songwriting altered much through the years?
Only because of the technology, the advances in the technology. I can now put on a drum loop and try and come up with ideas using a drum loop. Sometimes just a rhythm can inspire you to write a melody over it. So in that sense, that's about the only difference. I still record everything I write. I now have a little digital audio recorder that just hold in my hand, and I can sing my ideas into it. A lot of writers do it that way. I don't think my writing's any different. I think it's matured, obviously, with age. But I still try and... No, I don't consciously try and do anything. I just take it as it comes. And I like to think I still have a quality control that, it's up. For instance, when I write an album, I'll start and I'll have 6 or 7 songs, and then I'll write another one and I'll say, oh, that's much better. I'll just get rid of one of the earlier ones, and it goes on like that, until eventually you've maybe had 20 songs for the album, but you're only going to use 12 of them. That's the way it works.
Now, just harking back to Alan Parsons, Pilot a couple of years ago put together a CD. I guess you could call it a tribute to the Alan Parsons project, a pilot project you called it. Must have been a really joyful album to put together.
It was. It came about because Ian and I had disagreements over the years, and we fell out for a long time. And then Ian lost his partnership with Alan when Alan moved to the States, and he started to use US musicians. And Ian and I both moved to Spain roughly the same time, roughly the same area. I think we were about 10 kilometres apart. And we established our friendship again. And I realised, I went to Spain for 3 years, and I kind of didn't do much. I set up my studio in Spain, and I had lots of people come out from Scotland to use the studio, and Japan, and I was enjoying it, but I realised Ian wasn't doing anything. Then I came back from Spain. This was 10 years ago, and Ian stayed on, and I started doing a lot more work, and I realised Ian still in Spain doing nothing. I would keep in touch with him And eventually he said to me, we're thinking of coming back and living in the UK. I said, oh, great. Look, we'll be able to catch up a lot more. And he said, have you ever thought of doing one of the project songs? I said, not really. And we just left it at that, but he had planted a seed in my head. So the next time I was in the studio, I started playing What Goes Up, which was a song I sung with Alan Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
And I realised, because of the advances in technology, it was starting to sound very much like the record, like the original recording. So I continued with it, and I sent it to Ian, and I said, what do you think of this? He said, it's great, I'd love to play guitar. And I said, go ahead, put your guitar on. That's basically how it came about, and we just kept doing track after track, and we were delighted with the end result. We were hoping that we could perhaps tour as a pilot project, but that didn't happen for lots of reasons. We can't let people know that we are the original members of the Alan Parsons Project. There's no way to get people to make the connection between pilot. I've tried as hard as I could by calling it a pilot project, which is APP, but people still don't get the connection.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's a bit sad because Alan's using a bunch of musicians. None of them played on the project. And Alan didn't play on the project either yet. He's standing on stage with a guitar around his neck playing keyboard and singing, and he never did any of these things with the project yet. That's what the people, the name is enough to attract the people.
Sure.
So, it would just be difficult for us to, unless it was written all over the poster, and we did lots of interviews and said, we are the original pilot members of the Alan Parsons Project. But again, I still have Pilot, and I'd rather be out touring with Pilot than touring as a pilot project, reproducing the Alan Parsons Project songs.
Was there any initial tentativeness on putting Pilot back together? Any concerns that you may not be able to recapture the magic, for want of a better word?
Not really. I think with a lot of artists, especially when you've been out of the limelight for so long, there's always a lack of confidence in the people who'll come along and see you play. And I even realise that working with other people like Albert Hammond or Rick Wakeman, they're concerned that people are going to come along and see you. So I think that was one thing that held me back from doing it. Not only that, I was busy doing a lot of other things, and I kept thinking, one day we'll get Pilot back together again. It's never been a great burning desire to do it. But now that we are doing it, I'm throwing myself into it 100%, and I just hope we can do more. I'd love to come back to Australia, for instance. I did the Countdown tour, which I loved. I'd like to be involved in something like that again. I'd love it.
For sure. Now, as we speak, you're currently on the road with Albert Hammond, a wonderful songwriter. How did you first come in touch with Albert?
I toured Germany with, and the agency is an agency called Hypertension. I toured Germany with a guy called Donny Munro, who was with a band called Runrig. I don't know if they're known in Australia or not. And the agency were great. Irene runs the agency, and she just gave me a call and said, you were great with Donny Munro. How do you fancy working with Albert Hammond? And at the time, I had other things going on. This was over a year ago. I had a lot of things going on, and I said, I'm not sure if I want to do that. She said, I'll let you think about it. And then I got a call from Dave Stewart, who's the current drummer with Albert Hammond, and he said, I'm doing the tour. And he's a great drummer. I love working with him. So I said, I'll try it. And I've tried it, and I love it. I'm really enjoying this tour. It's a great bunch of people. Albert's songs, as you say, his songwriting is fantastic. And at the moment, we're on tour with the Leipzig Symphony Orchestra. Oh, wow. And that's another thrill, It's not quite the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, but it's a great orchestra. It's fantastic. It's a great thrill to be doing this. And just like with Rick, I'm getting to see places I've never been before. Like we went to Cape Town with Albert. We've been back to Japan with Albert. We go lots of places with him, and I have a different view on touring now, in that I actually see everything, and rather than it just being a blur and not taking it in. I even bought myself a nice camera so I could go sightseeing. So I take full advantage of being on tour.
So you're more of the tourist rather than just a touring musician.
Yeah, it's a bit of both, combining pleasure with the work.
Fantastic. David, just before I let you go, upcoming plans. What can we expect to hear from you in the near future?
We are, as soon as I finish with Albert, which is on the 14th of November, we're straight into rehearsal with Pilot, and we're off to Japan on the 18th of November. We do our first gig on the 21st of November, and we're there for a week. Then we come back and we have some more Pilot gigs. I think there's 5 at the moment in Scotland. And then I'll be probably back out with Albert again. He wants to start again in March, April kind of time. So that's the way it's looking at the moment.
Busy times.
Busy times, yeah. I'm quite pleased. I'm 67 in a couple of days. And I never thought I'd still be making music at 67.
Oh,
another kick. I'm getting another kick at the ball, and I'm loving it.
I sure hope I'm looking as good as you when I'm 67. You're looking pretty good.
It's the wine.
Is that what it is?
The Australian wine, yeah.
Hey, David, just a pleasure. I'm glad we finally caught up, and thanks so much for your time. And
thank you, John.
We surely do hope we do get to see you down here with or without Pilot. That Australia has got a real love affair with the band, and we certainly love to see you back here.
I'd love to come back. I love Australia. I almost emigrated, but it didn't happen. I love Australia.
Never mind.
I'd love to see you. Great, John. Thanks
Terrific.
very much.
Enjoy the rest of your tour.
All right.
All the best. Cheers.
Bye.